A nut, botanically speaking, is is a dry fruit containing a seed, probably dominated by the seed, which is in an indehiscent container. So, in other words, it doesn't split open of its own accord. Most of these are not nuts. That's the seed. That's a peanut and therefore a bean. That's the stone of a pome or a drupe, because it's an almond. I'm not actually sure there are any nuts at all in this. If I look at the ingredients, it says peanuts, which are not nuts, raisins, which are obviously not nuts, Brazil nuts, which are not nuts, almonds, which are not nuts, and hazelnuts, which are nuts. Now, when we use words in botany which are not, don't sound like technical terms, it sometimes gets a bit confusing. For example, this is a berry. This is a berry as well, and I think that's closer. And this is a berry which is, actually also called a hesperidium, which I think is a useless term because it only refers to citrus fruit. And this is a pome. It's clearly connected to the word for apple in French or another language. So, we are using terms which are mainly from English. The words drupe and pome are not from English. Hesperidium is not from English. But nut and berry are. And when we use the words nut and berry in ordinary conversation, we seem to think we know what they mean. And I think we do know what they mean. I mean, a nut is a hard fruit which we eat, a bit like a seed. Doesn't have to be a fruit because pine nuts are also nuts. So when we are using technical terms from English and we've actually adapted those terms, it can lead to a lot of confusion. If we use a term which appears to have a higher register because it has a different origin, such as hesperidium or pome, we clear up the confusion because we then use a term which we realise that we're not familiar with in ordinary conversation. Whereas if we say nut, you end up with the conversation becoming very peculiar because we're talking about things which everybody calls nuts, and none of them are nuts. The only real nut in there is a hazelnut, and I can't actually see a single hazelnut in there. This is a berry. Obviously this is not a berry, although botanically this is a berry, and it does pick out similarities between the two. These are berries as well. I think probably tomatoes are closer to being berries, but also capsicums, red peppers, green peppers and so forth, those are berries too. So how useful is that term? I mean, it's got a botanical use, but clearly it's not the same as the colloquial use, and that is leading to confusion. So if I say a term like euphoria or dysphoria, I think it has a purpose in being separated from ordinary conversation rather than happiness and unhappiness, because it signals that I'm talking about something different. It is to some extent an anti-language, and it gives you the illusion of understanding it, but it's not that it does have a purpose. There is a reason for signalling that. Now, the other thing I was going to say was that the specific immune response, which is what most people call the immune system, I'm not going to go into why I don't call it that, seems to know what a nut is, but also includes sesame seeds in that, whereas it excludes coconuts from that. And as such, it seems that it has almost has a concept of a nut when people are hyperallergic to peanuts and that sort of thing, which is more similar to the colloquial use of the word nut than it is to the botanical use. And I think that's very interesting, but I don't know what to do with it.